for you. When the society had what we call as faith, because you must understand faith does not allow you to have reason. Because you just have faith, that's all. So there is no reasoning involved. When the society had faith, they were of the view that there was no reason for a doctor to lie. Because he is a disinterested person. So if there was a witness who said in the court that I saw the accused stabbing to death the deceased by means of a dagger and piercing it into his abdomen. And the medical report on the other hand said that no, there was no injury in the stomach. He was not killed by any such weapon. He had a fracture at the occipital region, that is on the back side of his head, caused by a blunt weapon. There was obviously conflict. Which one to believe? Because the witness says no, he was stabbed to death by means of a dagger. The doctor says no, he didn't die of any such assault. Because of the fact that the society had faith in the doctors, the law was that it is the medical evidence which will prevail. Today the situation has changed. And the time came when the Supreme Court had to remind us that medical evidence cannot always be treated as a touchstone for testing the veracity of ocular, that means eyewitnesses' account of the occurrence. So if there is a conflict between the two, it is the duty of the court to determine which one of them is telling the truth. If the court is unable to say as to who is telling the truth, the benefit will go to the accused. But if the court is in a position to say that this eyewitness is telling the truth and the doctor is lying, the accused shall be convicted, notwithstanding the fact that the medical evidence points to the contrary. There is no change in the evidence till today. No change in the Evidence Act. But the law already stands changed. And it does not happen in India, it happens everywhere. In the United Kingdom, the definition of rape was as has been brought in: unlawful sexual intercourse by a man with a woman without her consent or against her will. I am repeating: unlawful sexual intercourse by a man with a woman without her consent or against her will. The question before the court arose: if the husband has sex with his wife against her will it amount to rape? The answer of the court was that by marriage the woman surrenders to the husband, and therefore this word unlawful has to be read outside the institution of marriage. And if you read it outside the institution of marriage, it will mean that if the husband had sex with his wife, even against her will or without her consent, it will not amount to rape. Much water flew thereafter. And the present position of law in United Kingdom on the basis of the same definition is that this word unlawful shall not be read outside the institution of marriage. And if you read the word unlawful within the institution of marriage, the meaning will be that if a husband has sex with his wife against her will or without her consent, it will amount to rape. No change in the law. But human rights is one thing which remains unchanged. As I have said earlier, it will not depend at the mercy of any legislature, at the mercy of any constitution. It's a right with which every individual is born. And what is that right? The right that he will have the dignity Now, it is very unfortunate for us that the biggest hatred that we are seeing today in the world is the religion. Today we have far more temples than we had perhaps 10 years ago, far more mosques than we had 10 years ago. And even old cathedrals which were not in use in the past, today have been renovated, are in use. Do we find greater peace in the society today? Since I am born in a Muslim family, I think it's by coincidence I am Muslim. Had I been born in a Hindu family, I might have been Hindu. The Quran which we say are the words of God, it says, it begins by saying, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That I thank that Almighty who is the master of the entire universe. He is the master of the entire universe. He is not the master of only Muslims. If I am a creature of that God, our protocol officer, Mr. Major Singh, maybe he is a Sikh, he will also have to be the creature of the same God. How can I cause any harm to him? How can I do anything which takes away his human rights? If we are Hindus, we will say, Kan Kan mein base Ram. That means every iota, every particle has the existence of Ram. It can't exclusively exist or live only in Mr. Bhogal. If Ram really exists, then he has to exist in me as well if he's God. How can he cause any harm to me? Or so as a Muslim, I can't cause any harm to him. As a Hindu, I can't. If somebody is Christian, he says, all are children of God. So how one child of God will cause any harm to another child of God? Only because he belongs to a different faith, which he himself does not know is correct or not. Because if my father goes to temple or every day say make some worship or say some Gita part or anything, I also start doing. If somebody is in a Muslim family, his father is saying his prayer, he also start doing the same thing. If he is a Christian, he also says the same. It is this poison that we have to be aware of, because this is the one which will take away one day our human rights. Because there are two parts in this. One is the human rights, the other is strengthening of democracy. We have many definitions of democracy, and I think the most acceptable definition is by Abraham Lincoln, that it is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. And I very, very clearly recall those, though I watch very little TV, who was a gentleman who carried on that movement against corruption from Maharashtra. Anna Hazare. Those days the youngsters used to shout it, the government of the people, for the people, by the people. What is really the essence of democracy? You understand what is an essence? If somebody has used a perfume, you feel. Do you see anything? It is neither solid, nor it is liquid, nor is it gas. It is the fourth state of matter. So what is the essence? What is the soul of democracy? The soul of democracy, ladies and gentlemen, is that we agree to disagree. I give you the right and privilege of not agreeing with what I say. But you must also have the courtesy of giving me the same right and privilege of not agreeing with what you say. So where democracy survives, there will be exchange of views. Where democracy does not survive, and as we have just recently seen, There was a time when the chappals used to be thrown on microphone. Now everything is fixed. And still in UP Assembly, it has been taken out and thrown. Because the debate is no more there, it's not required. Are we really democracy? Let me ask you one thing. There is a ruling party, there is an opposition. The opposition raises some question and criticizes the ruling party which is governing. Do they have it right? Or speaking against the government is anti-national? Because if that is anti-national, and assuming the party which is today in power will be in opposition, and they will criticize the other party, so they will become anti-national. So the whole nation is anti-national. Always bear in mind there is a difference between the government and the nation. My loyalty has to be to the nation. Government will keep coming and going. The nation remains with me. And my loyalty has to be with the nation, where I create problems by myself by not being with the nation. Now remember that a person who may be taking in the law in his own hands today may be a terrorist, just like Shaheed Bhagat Singh. Tomorrow he may become the freedom fighter. He may be treated as the freedom fighter. But what we unfortunately miss, I think it's my personal view, I have not read anywhere, that we don't understand the difference between Bhagat Singh at the time that he had and the time that we have. Now what is the difference? The difference I would give you from the trial of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was tried on a charge of sedition. You must have heard the sedition word very much 2 years back when in JNU you saw those slogans being raised. Everybody was using very loosely sedition. So Gandhi was also charged with the offense of sedition. And the judge asked him, do you plead guilty or not guilty? You know what was the reply of Gandhi? He says, as far as the charges are concerned, the facts stated in the charges are concerned, I agree with all of them. Whatever you have stated as a fact are true. If you are of the view that I have committed an offense, you have the power to punish me, you punish me. I consider what I have done for the good of my country. So I have done my part, you do your part. Now here's an interesting debate between the two. And you know what the judge says? I am really impressed by the judge and feel like saluting. An Englishman says, it's rare in the history of mankind that a man of your stature is tried in a court of law. And I know even in my court I will not get another chance or another occasion where a man of your stature will be tried. But you must bear in mind what we are talking about, the norms of society. As the judge says, you must bear in mind, law is not respect of personality. And he holds Gandhi guilty, convicts him, passes sentences against him. But what is important, the last that he observes at the end, he says, if at any future point of time, the crown happens to pardon you, that means if the king tomorrow pardons you, nobody will be happier than me. meaning they are right that he's hard with the gun, but he had the responsibility of applying the law which he had to apply, and he has applied. But merely a law is not enough. That law has to be, if we take the case of Maneka Gandhi, has to be fair, reasonable. So that was the time where the law was not mine. The law was of some country and we were only colony. So the law is ours. Constitution is ours. We have given that constitution to ourselves. So today when you violate a law, you can't say I don't. What was after all this salt satyagraha? An order under section 144 of the CRPC was promulgated by the district magistrate. That was violated. We violated the law. Because the Gandhi's idea was that if the law is illegal, it should not be followed. If the law is illegal, applied illegally, it will not be followed. We forgot what Gandhi meant. We have only understood that flout the law. So if you make a speed breaker, you will find that from the side somebody is passing. All the tracks will be there, available. So we don't respect law. We are still in the same old concept of the English people. We forget that today the law is ours. Unless there is a policeman to enforce it, we don't. And that's the difference between us and a civilized society that we call. And which Mr. Bogal was referring to. This is what we have to very, very clearly understand. Today is our law. So our law has to be applied proper, and where there are aberrations in the applications of law, we should be able to raise our voice. If you are not able to raise your voice, you don't think you live in democracy. If you don't allow somebody else to raise the voice, then also you are not in democracy. Because the essence of democracy is that we agree to disagree. Because after all, democracy we say it is the rule of law. Otherwise it would be the mind is right, which used to happen in every kind of society. The mind was right. Whether it is Arabia during the time of the Prophet before Islam spread, or it is Gita, same thing. But what is important, and let us take it from Gita, is that to raise your voice, raise your arms, raise your hands. Against whom? Against your own people if they are wrong. It does not allow you to take somebody else's human rights if he is not armed, he is not taking up his arms. It is not only the Indian army which sacrifices. Are we trying to say the policemen who died during this entire operation of Palestine, their sacrifices were meaningless? The judges who work under the threat in difficult situations, and even today some of these states, they work in very, very difficult situations, are not they making sacrifices? Out of fear, many laws don't appear. I can give you an example. Say, for instance, when the foreign national movement was on in Assam, no lawyer was available to defend a police officer. And it was Mr. KTS Tulsi from Chandigarh who was taken. And that is what brought him to the name at the national scene. What is the meaning? We must appreciate the situation. So it can't be in a one-way traffic. the epitaph. You know what is epitaph? Very interestingly, I have an experiment with the word epitaph. Very knowledgeable and very full of humor, a very senior and very good advocate, Mr. Anadi Bhushan Roy, late Anadi Bhushan Roy, I would say now. He was father of Justice Amitabh Bachchan, is now in the Supreme Court. He argued an appeal before me, and eventually his appeal was dismissed. I saw him the day the judgment was pronounced. He was going through the file. I was very friendly with him. After he closed the file, I asked him, "What do you think of the judgment?" He says, "Good epitaph." If you go to the graves, more particularly of the armed forces, because I don't know how many of you know, in Nagaland, there is a cemetery of the individuals in the armed forces who laid down their lives during the Second World War. And that cemetery even today is maintained by the Britishers. They will find their achievements written, just like you see in the Maqbaras, the achievements written. But at the end of the day, they are dead people. So meaning thereby, in the appeal, you have said everything, but at the end of the thing, it is dismissed. So that's what epitaph. The epitaph of the seigneury of law, maybe 100 years ago, remains the same. And what was that epitaph? Chairperson says in Pygmalion. If you read, you will find. Law is equal for all of us, but we are not equal before the law. There is one law for the poor, another for the rich. One for the strong, another for the weak. One for the literate, another for the illiterate. So on and so forth. I don't think anybody will doubt the law remains the same even today. It is different for different classes of people. So there is failure on our part. And that is what a strengthening of democracy would mean. Because there is a difference much between literacy and education. Being literate of human rights is one thing. Being educated in human rights is quite another. Because the education molds your personality as a whole, not